when I wanted to be a musician, I met a lot of opposition from my family, who thought that the best way to have a proper life, of proper means of living, is to either become a professional, like a doctor, a lawyer, or accountant, or something else like that, or intellectual. Maybe you could be a lecturer.
Greetings, all you very rare individuals. Welcome to another Afro Scot podcast. It's episode 41, and we'll talk about why Africa is great. Specifically, we're going to talk about the virtuoso Ebo Taylor. Now, who's Ebo Taylor? He's an experienced African musician. He was born in Ghana, and he is one of the propagators of high life music, which originated in Ghana. And he also was known to collaborate with people like Fela Kuti and many of the greatest African musicians during the 20th century. When he found his calling in life, and that was to become a musician, his family members weren't really fond of it, and that is really common in African households, because back in Africa, in African countries, when you are growing up, many family members and many people think that the only way to succeed is by becoming a professional, and that's through becoming a doctor, lawyer, anything that is worldwide and will always be in need, especially somebody like a doctor. So things like art and music isn't really celebrated because of how unlikely it is for you to succeed in those fields, and also because the economy isn't too good in many African countries, so there's not an increased amount of cash floating around so where people can be spending money on art and music. So as a result, many Africans grow up not wanting to go down that route and following their calling, either through music, art, or any other field. But Ebo Taylor decided to go follow his heart, and he made a success out of it, and he's still being talked about today. Even Usher used one of his songs as a sample for his own album music. So he's well known among many seasoned musicians. What I love about his music is that he incorporates the African high life sound into his music. He said that Afrobeats originates from and takes its inspiration from high life, which is in Ghana. And you can see in his music that it has a very funky sound to it. Chuck Wayne is actually considered to be one of his favorite guitarists, and he takes his inspiration from him, and many other artists as well. I like his whole style and how he presents his music. I like the fact that his son also plays in his band, and he wanted his son to become a professional. But when he saw that his son was really talented, he decided to include him into his band and also promote his son's ideas of becoming a musician. My favorite thing about his music is that once you listen to it, you can't help but move. And that's a great thing about African music. And one of the problems that he brings up is that there's a lack of music education in his country, in Ghana. And I like what he said about there's no business like show business, and that actually music actually makes money, and that if you're a good entertainer, you will make money from it, and that many young people nowadays aren't really educated in the classical music. And he said that how can you know about music if you don't know the classical side of music? So I found that really interesting. He seems to be really well versed in the classics like Mozart, Handel, Chopin, Tchaikovsky, and their sound inspires his own sound, similar to how Fela was also inspired by the classical music, as he brought the orchestra and jazz to African high life, which was quite unique for the time. He released an album called Love and Death recently, and his Love and Death album is inspired by the fact that love ends through death, and that love is death. For example, during marriage ceremonies, they say, "To death do us part." So that's where he gets his idea of the album from. So you can tell that he's somebody that thinks deeply about his album ideas, and it's fairly different from among many of the African Afrobeat artists, as he doesn't really like to take the political route with his albums and music, because he believes music should be for everybody, because as a musician you're an entertainer. But in a way, when you make music, it will always have some type of political component. So I really liked how he went that route as well, which makes him stand out among other Afrobeats high life musicians. And also another profound thing was that he said during his time in Ghana, he lost some tapes when they deported him from Nigeria, and many of those tapes were later found and then were released later into singles and for his album. With the death of his wife, he decided not to make any more music, that he would rather just perform. And I guess every artist has their own time when they decide to hang it up. But as an entertainer, he continues to travel around the world, entertaining others with his music. Many young people nowadays don't really play the instruments, that they would rather just rap instead of singing or developing their musical talent or musical knowledge. And as a result, many of them lack that substance that most virtuosos in the past had. And he said that it's okay as long as they are still propagating the African music style, as there's a new style called hip life, which is a mixture of hip hop and African high life. So I like how, though he's part of the old generation of music artists, he's still fond and praising the new generation of artists who can also spread and entertain many people, as music is made for, and has entertained me and inspired me. And he's a great example of somebody who didn't come from the best background, neither was he encouraged when he wanted to be a musician, but he kept going forward and he made something out of himself. And we should use him as an example to become strong, centered, focused, driven Afro Scots.